and welcome. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the Shunamite diet because my cat's here. Just because my other cat is underneath the tripod. Okay, it's fine. She's not a menace to society. She hasn't eaten several rolls of toilet paper this week. It's fine. Anywho, I talk about the Shunamite diet a lot, but I don't really go into details too much or explain like my recipe or anything like that. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that I cannot control other people, and I know that people are going to do that thing where they get something that's close enough to what I'm saying, and then their rat's going to have an imbalanced diet. And I can't help you there. But I can help the people who actually want to do Shunamite and do it properly. So this is just the basics. This is the basics of Shunamite, because there's a lot of details to it. If you do want, there's cat hair in my chapstick, sorry. If you do want more knowledge on Shunamite, you can always visit the Shunamite Diet, Shunamite Diet USA Facebook group. It's not very active anymore, Augie. It's not very active anymore, but if you want to chat, there's always someone who will talk to you at least a little bit. And there's also a book called The Scuttling Gourmet, which you can purchase, and it has a lot of information on it as well. Anyway, a couple of caveats. One, again, this is just the basics of the diet. So if you do want to know more, you're going to have to go outside this video to learn more. Two, if you are one of those people who are going to get something that's close enough, you know, you do you, I guess, but don't complain to me if it doesn't work out. And three, I'm mostly going to be talking about US-based Shunamite diet because the UK is very different. Other countries may or may not have the ingredients I'm going to be talking about. It is just, I can only really speak on my country and what is available to me. There are other parts of my country where some of this stuff might not be available. It is what it is. So like, I am talking about the US. Some of this can be applied to other countries, some of it can't. Again, if you want more help with that, a lot of people from other countries talk on the Shunamite Diet USA group, and you can go there for more information. Another caveat is the diet I'm going to be talking about is specifically for standard sized rats that are on a kidney friendly diet. Rats are prone to something called HLD, and it is a common thing with HLD that it's caused by kidney issues, so you want them to be on a kidney-friendly diet, which means specific protein, less protein, and no wheat or oats, or as few wheat and oats as you can manage for them, because it's hard on their kidneys. Those are hard on their kidneys. So Shunamite diet is a diet that's based on volume rather than weight. So the way you do the Shunamite diet is you have a total of 20 scoops. A scoop can be any container of any size. Just make sure you're using the same scoop or adequate measuring device, like if you're using cups, for example, to do every scoop so that it is done correctly. Do not eyeball it. Make sure you can do like a drinking glass. You can do, like, as I said, like a measuring cup or several measuring cups, since those are all in relative size to each other. You can do pretty much anything. You can do a tablespoon if you only have 2 rats. You can do whatever you want. So let's start with the base mix, which is what the majority of your diet's going to be. So the base mix is 11 scoops. Now, there are 2 ways to do the base mix. One has fortified ingredients and one does not. So the one that has fortified ingredients, you take some other branded food. So like, I use pigeon food and horse feed. Those are usually what you're going to find in the US, is some kind of pigeon food and some kind of horse feed. Now, horse feed is not used very often because the one that everyone was using was discontinued, so it's not usually recommended anymore. And when people talk about it, everyone tells them just to use straight grains recipe. Now, the reason why the pigeon food and the horse food can be good to use is because they are fortified ingredients, which means that the food has vitamins and minerals in it that help your rat's diet. And the straight grains recipe does not. Now, there is a way around this, which we'll talk about later. But if you want to use the pigeon food or the horse food, I have notes. The pigeon food I use is the Versailles Laga Plus IC Black Label Champion Pigeon Food. I will put that on screen, don't worry. And then you can use at most, keep in mind, the base mix is 11 scoops. You can use at most 4 scoops of that. And so the horse feed that I can use, that a lot of people do use, is Omeline 300, which is Purina, I believe. And you can use at most 3 scoops of that because it's for horses, and horses are just a little bit bigger than rats are. So at most 3 scoops of that. The rest of the base mix is going to be straight grains, or you can do entirely straight grains. Even if you do entirely straight grains, it's still 11 scoops. So if you add the fortified ingredients, whatever the number of scoops you have left, that will be straight grains. If you don't, it is 11 scoops of straight grains. I know it is a lot, but I'll do like a shortened version of it at the end for like simple note taking. Anyway, so again, I have notes. Some of the straight grains you can use. You need at least 6 of them for your scoop, because the whole point of the Shunamite diet is to give your rat a balanced but varied diet. The more ingredients you have, the better. So you want at least 6, but the more you can have, the better. So some examples are whole barley, buckwheat, paddy rice, brown rice, sorghum, wild rice, red rice, black rice, pearled barley, coarse bulgur, millet, popcorn kernels, split or flaked peas. But if you want to do the peas, then it's recommended you only do half a scoop because they're kind of high in protein. Next, let's talk protein. You want 2 scoops of protein. And the kind of protein you use is very important because, again, we're talking about a kidney-friendly diet, and certain proteins are just not as good for them. Things like chicken or meats, like that kind of thing, just aren't as easy on the kidneys as things like salmon or insects or even vegan diets. So the protein you want to use, most people go with like a dog food, and you want a high-end dog food. So what I use is the Canidae salmon and pumpkin, I believe is what it is. And that's what I use for my rats, but you can also go with a vegan dog food or an insect-based dog food. Both of those have proteins that are easy on your rat's kidneys. You can also do things like dried insects such as mealworms or black soldier fly larvae. I've seen some people use that kind of thing because, again, insect protein is easier on their kidneys, but it's also higher in protein. So you want to use at least a little bit of the dog food, and then just like 1 scoop of dog food and like 1 scoop of insects, or a scoop and a half of dog food and half a scoop of insects, just because the insects are a little bit higher in protein. Or you can also add things like lentils or split peas, because again, split peas are higher in protein. Next, you have processed grains. And the processed grains make up 5 scoops of your Shunamite diet. And what processed grains is, it's things like pastas and cereals and crackers. So with the cereals, you want them to be less than 5% sugar for 100 grams. Because again, sugar's not great for them. Some good examples, you can do like cornflakes or rice checks, or off-brand Rice Krispies are good. Off-brand is good in general because there tends to be less sugar. Or if you don't mind doing just like a little less of it, you could do total cereal, because it's very fortified and there's a lot of like vitamins and good things in there, but it is higher in sugar. So you don't want to do as much of it. So like I do 1 scoop of total in my mix because it is so fortified, but I don't go beyond that because of the sugar content. Now, pastas in general, you have a lot of options. A lot of people like to do the veggie spiral pasta. I just do normal, like, dried pasta, and I like to do the ones that look like puka shells because the sound they make when you mix is amazing. And then you have options like crackers, like Rivita crackers or rice crackers. I would say just make sure that there's not too much sodium in them, because a lot of crackers have like that salt on top, and you don't want your rats to have too much sodium either. And then you can do things like rice cakes. Like if you just break up some rice cakes, that is something a lot of people do, and that works well for processed grains as well. Petty. But definitely don't do things like sugary cereals, like I've seen people do Fruit Loops or things like that. Don't do that. And Cheerios aren't the best option for a kidney-friendly diet. There are other diets, but most people choose to do a kidney-friendly diet and add on extra protein because it's just easier in the long run. And the thing with Cheerios is because they are made with oats, they're not great for the kidneys. So you could do Cheerios, but it's not the best for older rats and their kidney health. Next for your diet, you want to do dried veg and herbs, and this is going to make up 1 scoop of your Shunamite diet. And there's a lot of options for this. One is you could dehydrate your own, so you just go select whatever vegetables that you feel like doing, and you put them in your oven or a dehydrator if you have a dehydrator. But if you don't, you can do it in your oven. You just put your oven on the lowest setting, and then some people will crack the oven to vent it. I won't do that because I hate heat. I hate heat, but you could if you wanted to, or you could just keep it on the lowest setting and let it dehydrate that way. You also have the option of doing the Rosewood Naturals like bagged foraging mix that people use for the guinea pigs. I personally use that, plus the next option, which is dried soup, like dried veggie soup mix. I combine that and the Rosewood, mix it up, and that's my veggies. And then there's also something called canine, hold on. Yeah, canine caviar synergy, which is dried veg. It is expensive, so like most people will go either with buying their own veg and dehydrating it themselves, or what I do, which is the soup mix plus the Rosewood Naturals, just to get a little bit of extra in there. Next for your Shunamite mix, you want 1 scoop of oily seeds. And this is probably the easiest thing for me, and I'll explain why in a second, but you have flax seeds, chia seeds, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, that kind of thing, and you want as many of these seeds as possible, again, for variety. And for me, I do this by just going online onto Amazon and purchasing the You Pick Super Seed Mix, because it has all of these things in there except for the chia seeds, and it works really well for my rats. And then finally, if you want, you can put like some fun stuff in there. It's not a scoop. You just grab like a small handful of this stuff and you sprinkle it in. And it's things like coconut or coconut chunks, dried coconut chunks, banana chips. Some people do like the puff cereal, that kind of thing. And it's just so that sometimes, occasionally, when you do a scoop of food for your rats, they get a fun thing in there for them. Now, for the dry mix, how much do you feed them? And you feed them 15 grams of food per rat per day. So this is rat dependent. Sometimes you need more, sometimes you need less. So for example, with my rats, because I do give them a fresh meal every single day, they only get, for the standards, 10 grams of their Shunamite mix per rat per day. Some rats will need more, some will need less. Just decide based on like their weight and their body condition when you go to feed them. Some people say you could do 2 tablespoons, but I personally think that for this diet, you do need a kitchen scale and you should just measure it in grams because that is the easiest way to do it. Now, the thing with the Shunamite diet, and here's where we're going to get into the nitty gritty. So the Shunamite diet, if you do not have a heavily fortified mix, or even if you have, the thing with the Shunamite diet is you want to make sure that your rats are getting all of the proper vitamins and minerals that they need. So you do need to supplement them. So you don't necessarily need to do this with a commercially made food like Oxbow, but Oxbow does not necessarily meet all your rats' needs, and it's also very boring for them to eat. It's so boring for them. So to do the vitamin supplements, you get something called Daily Essentials 1. It's also called Dr. Squiggles in some places, but mine's always Daily Essentials 1. And I do Calciboost, I do the liquid version of Calciboost, and that's for calcium. And I mix it into their water. So I'm going to be talking about the water-soluble versions because I don't know the powdered versions or the non-water-soluble versions of these things. So if you have a heavily fortified mix, like my mix is heavily fortified because I have the pigeon food and the horse feed. Not everyone can do that because it's a big bag of food, and I'm able to do that because I have a chest freezer in my garage and 20 rats at any given time. But for someone who has like 3 rats and no ratty friends and no chest freezer, it's not necessarily the best option for them to get this stuff. And the thing with both the horse feed and the pigeon feed is if you just have it laying around, you can get grain weevils pretty easily. Mine is kept in the chest freezer specifically for this reason. So, if you have a heavily fortified diet with either these and like with dog food and with fortified cereals, all of that, so 3 times a week you'll need to give them their vitamins. If you do a straight grains mix where you don't have the fortified ingredients, you'll need to do it 5 times a week. So for the Daily Essentials 1/Dr. Squiggles, you follow the mixing instructions on the back of the bottle, and then it's 100 milligrams of water for every 1,000 grams of weight in the cage. So, like, for example, Thistle and Kelpie combined weigh like 900 grams. So, like, you can just bump it up. They'd get 100 milligrams. So, like, or sorry, like, they'd get 100 milliliters. And then the calcium you can mix into the same bowl. I do anyway. Most rats don't mind it. Some do. You know, some rats are going to be picky. It's just how it is. It is 1 milliliter per 1,000 grams of weight. So again, for these two, that is 1 milliliter for the two of them, just mixed into the same water bowl. There are options for calcium that aren't the liquid calcium. You can do chicken bones, and you can do eggshells pretty easily. Just crush up the eggshells into a salad or something, and that will take care of it. The chicken bones, you just give them. It doesn't have to be chicken bones. It could be turkey bones. It could be like rib bones from like ribs or something. Pretty much any kind of bone they can eat. So you can supplement calcium other ways, but the liquid calcium is definitely the easiest. And if you do happen to give them chicken bones in the week or some kind of bone during the week, just skip like a day of calcium and it should be fine. Assuming some of y'all are going to have to pause through this to write down ingredients, I'm just going to go over the basic mixing principle. So again, just for clarification, the Shunamite diet is a rat diet that is based on volume. So you do 20 scoops of food. You have 11 scoops of your base mix, which is going to be mostly grains, and sometimes you can add a fortified ingredient such as pigeon food or horse feed, but that is 11 scoops. And then you have 2 scoops of protein. You have 5 scoops of processed grains. You have 1 scoop of herb and veg, and you have 1 scoop of oily seeds, and then you can add a handful of extras. So 20 scoops, 11 of your base mix, 2 of your protein, 5 of your processed grains, 1 of your dried herb and veg, and 1 of your oily seed mix. And again, the more variety you can do, the better. I'm sorry if this was confusing. It's hard to talk about because it's just like a lot of like little bitty information. None of it's complicated, but I do understand how some people can get overwhelmed with just the amount of information. And I do understand that a lot of people would just like a recipe to follow, and I completely get that. I'm not going to be sharing my recipe just because it's not going to work for every rat. And I do understand that it's so much easier if you can just follow a recipe. But if you're going to be scooping, or if you're going to be mixing your own Shunamite diet, I do think it's important that you find ingredients that work for you and your rats. All right, that's going to be it for this video. I hope it was helpful to those of you who wanted help, and I hope it was entertaining for those of you that are just hanging out with me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. All the fun stuff down below. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!